Well, Canada, we're in mourning. The Blue Jays lost the World Series in 7. A series for the ages, down to the wire, and our boys, it just fell short.
But hey, let's be honest. The U.S. probably needs this one way more than we do. They've got to wake up every morning with Donald Trump as their president.
And California took the win, which is poetic because it's a state that Trump can't stand almost as much as he can't stand us.
Still, we're calling it a win for the good guys because Gavin Newsom's one of the few American leaders who actually stands up to Trump.
So, as we shed a tear for the Jays, let's raise a glass to the Golden State, to Gavin Newsom, to everyone just trying to hold the line, and to Americans who needed something to smile about.
Because if baseball's America's game, this season reminded us that sometimes heart and hustle matter more than the payroll.
If there's one thing that we can take from that World Series, it's exactly what Prime Minister Mark Carney said before Game 7. You don't need the biggest payroll or the biggest American team to win. You just need guts, teamwork, and the courage to take smart risks.
And that's the story of Canada right now. Not playing it safe, but playing it smart.
Carney's been saying it all week in Asia. Our strength isn't in how loud we are, it's how we all work together.
And speaking of working together, a lot of you have been asking about the F-35 jets. It's come up in our A-Team chats and in the comments here on the channel.
People are worried, and for good reason. There's a lot of confusion about what Canada's actually committed to, what we can still change, and whether we're too dependent on the U.S. for our own defense.
So we figured that today we'd talk about the F-35 deal and what it really means for Canada, why it matters, and how it fits into Carney's bigger message about smart risks and real sovereignty.
First, a quick refresher. The F-35 Lightning II is a stealth fighter jet made by Lockheed Martin in the United States. It's designed to do a bit of everything: air combat, surveillance, and ground strikes.
It's what the military calls a fifth-generation aircraft, meaning it can hide from radar, share data instantly, and carry a serious punch. It sounds impressive, right? Well, it also comes with a price tag that could fund a few new hospitals every single year.
Canada joined the international program years ago alongside the US and several allies to replace our aging CF-18s. But the F-35 has been controversial from day one, over cost overruns, constant software glitches, and sky-high maintenance bills.
Supporters say it keeps Canada compatible with allies in both NORAD and NATO. Critics call it a flying money pit, one that ties our air defense, our supply chain, and our sovereignty directly to an unstable Washington.
So let's break down where things stand right now, what Canada's actually bought, what's still on the table, and why so many of you are worried about it.
So here's the story. Canada originally signed up for 88 jets. But luckily we hit pause, and now we're confirmed for 16 for the first round. Not 38, we misspoke earlier this week, and we're sorry. But hey, it is so easy to do when everything keeps changing.
Yep. What matters is the plan, though. Canada modernizing its air defense without losing sight of its budget.
And like Carney said about the Jays, sometimes you take a risk and it doesn't all work out, but you still move forward.
Because buying from the United States was a risk that hasn't exactly paid off, right? You can't rely on critical gear from a country whose president keeps threatening your sovereignty. Canada's been hit with annexation talk, tariff blackmail, and that so-called Golden Dome ultimatum. And you know what? We're not going for any of it.
So it begs the question, why are we buying F-35s from the U.S. when we're supposed to be defending our skies, not hitching our fate on someone else's agenda?
Well, because Canada's already committed to the first 16 jets. Pilots are training at Luke Air Force Base starting in 2026, and the first aircraft arrive in Canada by 2028. The infrastructure is being built and the money's been spent. That part is already locked in.
But the program itself, it keeps stumbling. The big Block 4 modernization is way over budget by about $6 billion, and it's years behind schedule. Even the new TR-3 computer upgrade has delayed deliveries.
And reliability? A Canadian Forces College report warned that maintenance costs, spare parts, and low readiness rates could ground a big chunk of the global fleet. In other words, You can buy them, but keeping them in the air will cost you an absolute fortune.
The Auditor General already flagged ballooning costs. The full program has jumped from $19 billion to almost $28 billion. And that's before the extra $5.5 billion for full operations. At this rate, we won't be fully combat ready until the 2030s.
So, what do? Well, we've got two choices. One, keep the 16. The pilots are assigned, the training is queued up, and walking away now would set us back years and weaken NORAD. We hold Lockheed Martin to its promises and make sure that Canadians get every dollar of value that we paid for.
But, two, we stop there and diversify. Sweden's Gripen E is on the table, and Saab is actively exploring a deal with Bombardier to build and assemble them right here in Canada. Now that's real industrial independence, not dependency on the USA.
The Gripen is cheaper to fly, easier to maintain, and designed for cold climates and short airstrips. Exactly what you need for Arctic patrols. And flying them would align us with our northern allies like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Greenland.
The pushback, of course, is that managing two types of jets, which is a mixed fleet, it adds to complexity, two supply chains, and two training systems. And the military brass and Washington obviously would prefer we buy all 88 F-35s and call it a day.
But that's not the full picture. Most G7 nations fly mixed fleets, and Saab Bombardier joint venture would create thousands of Canadian jobs and long-term export potential. Now that's how you turn defense spending into paychecks at home.
And this isn't just theory. Even former RCAF commanders are questioning whether buying American still makes sense under the Trump regime. You can't buy your security from someone who's threatening your sovereignty.
Especially when his so-called Golden Dome plan sounds more like a sales pitch than an alliance. Pay up or join as the 51st state. Yeah, no thanks, Donnie.
And it's not just politics. The jets themselves have issues. This summer, one F-35 froze up in Alaska. Its hydraulics iced, systems failed, and the pilot had to eject. Another crashed in California. Hey, if we're patrolling the Arctic, cold-proof can't be a side note.
Definitely not. And that's why I think we finish the 16 for NORAD training and readiness, then pivot to the Canadian-built alternative for the rest.
Carney said it best before Game 7. You don't need the biggest payroll to win. You need smart choices and a team that plays together. Canada's defense strategy shouldn't be any different.
You know, Deb, every time that we talk about these jets, I keep coming back to the question, what happens when the country we buy them from turns into the threat that we're supposed to be defending against?
You said it, Dave. Trump has already renamed the Department of Homeland Security the Department of War. He's announced that he's restarting nuclear testing for the first time in over 30 years. And his actions point to wanting to control the entire Eastern Hemisphere, from Venezuela to Panama to Canada.
He's not even subtle about it. Back in January, he said he wouldn't rule out military force to take Greenland, an economic force to get Canada. Well, guess what? He's already doing it.
Tariffs, trade blockades, buy American orders, sanctions, they're all designed to squeeze Canada into submission. And while he's threatening us, we're still wiring billions of dollars to American weapons contractors.
That's the definition of risky. You don't fund your bully and you don't rely on your neighbor who keeps moving the goalposts.
And this isn't paranoia. He said it all out loud. He wants our resources, our water, our Arctic routes, our independence.
Which is why this F-35 debate isn't just about aircraft, it's about sovereignty. If Washington turns hostile, they can cut off our parts, withhold software updates, and even ground our planes immediately.
Retired generals have already warned about that. Canada might own the jets, but the US still owns the code that makes them fly.
So, when Carney says that Canada's got to take smart risks, this is what he means. Keeping the 16 jets for training makes sense, but the bigger risk is staying dependent on a country that sees our sovereignty as negotiable.
That's why Canada's new defense deals with Europe and South Korea matter so much. The partnership with the EU's ReArm program, the Safe Procurement Network, and the talks with Saab and Bombardier, and the submarine deals with South Korea or Germany, well, it's not just business, it's insurance.
Insurance that Canada can protect itself without begging for permission from Washington.
Because history shows what happens when smaller nations let bigger ones guarantee their protection. Just ask Poland how that worked out.
Yep, Trump's arming his loyalists, pardoning insurrectionists, and threatening his own cities, citizens, and neighbors. We can't assume this Department of War will stop at the border.
So here's the choice. Keep feeding the machine that threatens us, or start building one that defends us.
So what do? Well, we finished the 16 jets we're already locked into. Then pivot, not just in policy, but in principle. Because Canada can't keep buying its safety from someone who keeps trying to sell us out.
The Jays played their hearts out. They didn't win the title, but they did remind us who we are.
Canada's the team that fights above its weight, works together, and never stops believing in its own talent.
We don't need to be the biggest player, just the one that stands tall when it counts.
And this week, that means standing up for our sovereignty, our industry, and our independence.
But if we want to act like a world power, we've got to act like one country first.
So tomorrow, we're talking about interprovincial trade, why it still takes longer to move beer across a provincial border than a ship across the Pacific, and what Australia figured out that Canada hasn't.
So make sure you're subscribed and click on that bell so you get notified for tomorrow's deep dive, because this is where the real teamwork starts. And while we're talking about protecting Canada, it's not just about borders or fighter jets, it's about protecting Canadians. All Canadians.
We hear from so many of you, and one message hit us hard this week. A member of our A-team wrote about what it's like trying to survive on disability or a senior's pension. $1,500 a month while rent for a one-bedroom is $2,000.
That's not sovereignty when people who build this country or live with disabilities are being left behind. If we can spend billions on jets, we can make sure Canadians don't have to choose between rent and food.
We're hearing these stories, and they deserve more attention. So we're looking into it, and we'll talk soon about what real sovereignty means for Canadians who feel like they've been left behind.
Because defending Canada isn't just about what's in the sky and on our borders, it's about how we treat the people on the ground.
And before we wrap up, congratulations to the LA Dodgers and all of our American friends watching.
We see you. We know these are tough times politically, emotionally, even economically. But you can't give up. That's exactly what they want, for you to feel exhausted, defeated, and powerless.
The world needs you awake and engaged. And remember, you're not alone. We've got your back up here, north of the border.
And we'll keep standing with you, heads up, elbows up, and voices loud.
Because when good people on both sides of the border refuse to back down, democracy still has a fighting chance. Before we go, a huge thank you to our A-team, the supporters who keep this channel independent, global, and proudly Canadian. Your names are rolling on the screen right now.
You're the reason we stay fearless, funny, and fact-based.
Our community of thinkers, travelers, and truth-tellers who keep democracy alive and the lights on here at the Planet D Politics.
So thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Ciao for now.